This week on Sports Reel, we have endurance athlete and fitness fanatic Yasmine Salaam.
I was a late bloomer. My parents put us in all types of sports when we lived in Dubai. I did horseback riding, karate, swimming, but running was definitely not on my list. My favorite, I would say, is the creek. I go for the different bridges. That also alone, and it's to just run over bridges is such a motivating thing. And to run in Old Dubai, since I'm a native almost of the UAE, I feel very comfortable with the smells and the people and the city waking up, the sailors in their dhows. I remember my coach telling me, "What did you have for dinner?" And I said, "Oh, vegetable curry." He said, "Curry? What did you eat it with?" I said, "Rice." "What do you mean rice? Rice is sugar."
This is Sports Reel. My name is Simon Thurston. My guest today is Yasmine Salaam. Yasmine is born in Lebanon, attended school in Dubai and Switzerland, went to university in the US, has a PhD, speaks 6 languages, has run over 20 races, including 5 marathons on 3 continents. She's got 24 medals to show for her efforts, and she's got 3 amazing children. Whew, that's quite a list. Yasmine, welcome to Sports Reel.
Thank you. I'm otherwise known as PinkTaxiBlogger as well, so for social media, people know me.
Sure.
As my alter ego.
Cool. And I know from what I've seen of you on social media, lots of photos, lots of training at the moment. Yeah, always a lot of action going on in your social media accounts. To kick us off, the first question I like to ask people is, we're all generally expats here in Dubai. So what brought you to Dubai in the first place?
Dubai's home. I was here in 1975. That kind of reveals my age. It was a long time ago. And I went to school here. I went to the French school. And Dubai was very small. And I grew at the same time as Dubai, and I love the way it's become. It's really a dynamic place, and in the realm of sports, which we're talking about, I think it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a dynamic city. It's a hub for a lot of people. A lot of people have come here, made home here, as you have. So obviously you grew up here. What then made you go to Switzerland?
It was for educational reasons. I went one step at a time. I went to Switzerland and spent 3 years getting my French baccalaureate. But the aim was to go to the United States. I'm also American. I'm Swiss-American, Lebanese. So I definitely wanted to touch all my origins.
Sure.
And throughout my experience, I touched upon different sports gradually, and now I feel it's the culmination of it all. Sports is a family affair. So on both sides of my family, paternal and maternal, we have a lot of sporty cousins, uncles, aunts, and they were role models. Even my grandparents were actually very sportive.
Sure.
So it started that way, but I was a late bloomer. My parents put us in all types of sports when we lived in Dubai. I did horseback riding, karate, swimming, but running was definitely not on my list.
So, which I guess begs the question, what got you into running?
Well, at the ripe age of 41, I decided to take my cardio stamina from Flywheel, where I developed it. Flywheel is a spinning concept here in Dubai. And that's how I first developed my cardio stamina, besides swimming, which I'm a very good swimmer. But I never was able to, when I went running, I would get stitches, I would stop. At school, when we were, when they told us to run and thing, it felt like it was a punishment. But then at Flywheel, I started to breathe more naturally, listen to music, and one day I decided, when the weather was so nice in the UAE, I decided, let's try to go out there and run. And I ran 3 kilometers at the time. My team is called Inner Fight, and I joined them because I was doing CrossFit. And when they did make us run a kilometer or so, it seemed like a punishment, as I say. But then we spent a month on the beach, and the beach trail, they made us run 3 kilometers every day, and I started enjoying it. And it was the month of June. I knew there was a marathon coming up in Dubai, and I thought, why not? I have 6 months. Ooh, 6 months is a long way. And I thought, can I train for a marathon? Why not? I went straight into a marathon. I didn't decide, no, I'll do half marathons first or 10Ks. And from that 3K run on the beach, daily run, I decided I'm going to Switzerland in the summer. It's going to be beautiful out there. How about I try? So that's when I got a coach, a run coach. And his program, from there on, I trained for my first marathon. And that's how the running began.
Wow. So that's amazing, because I guess most people that I know, have started with 10K, then they go to half marathon, and then they build up to the big one. But you just jumped straight in.
I had 6 months, and from 3Ks, I increased them to 5. 8K seemed like, wow, such a long distance. And slowly, I remember my first 30K. I prepared for it all summer, that first summer. I did the 30K, and then, one doesn't really realize how difficult a marathon is until you run it. So I kind of didn't know that it would be that hard until I was there at the first marathon.
Would you say that first one, just because you didn't know what to expect, was your toughest race to date, or not?
The first one?
Yeah.
No, it was my biggest disappointment, I would say, because maybe my expectations were high and I didn't do well. I did it I'm proud to say that I did it in 5 hours and 15 minutes, because the progress I've done since is remarkable. So it's good to say. But I would say the most challenging race I've done is Comrades in South Africa. And that's an ultra marathon, and it's 89 kilometers. So yes, it doesn't compare. And funny enough, when I was running that, I had never ran more than 42 kilometers in my life. So once I reached the 42 kilometer milestone, it was open seas. I didn't know how I was going to feel and how the body's going to react. And it was an 8-hour plus run, an adventure, and an amazing experience.
So Comrades is basically a double marathon, back to back, non-stop.
Yes.
And what's the terrain like? Is it pretty?
Hills, 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 hills. And I didn't, again, it's funny how perhaps I do it to protect myself, but I didn't really study the terrain, or I didn't go see it ahead of time, because I don't think I would have started the race. Because while I was at it, I knew I had to fight and I had to do it. But if I had known all the difficulty of it, it would have been harder.
And what time of year was the race ran? What was the weather like in South Africa?
It was winter. They always do it in winter, every year. And what's impressive are the people that run it, because they run it every year. Every year. And they ask me, are you going to come back? I said, no, I definitely need a break.
From what my experience, my limited experience of long distance running, this is quite a common concept in terms of there's camaraderie and people tend to run the races multiple times.
Yes.
There's a big running community. Is that something else that kind of drove you to keep going? Because you're not just on your own all the time. There's a good community, especially here in Dubai.
Yes, I didn't know about it until I got into it. And I'm a solo runner, so I have not joined the club. Inner Fight is a CrossFit team.
And that's these guys.
Yes, exactly. So they get us stronger mentally and also physically. But they prepare anyone for any sport, and I go there on my own though. When I go running, when I train, I run alone, except for occasions when friends pop in and we'll go together and we'll run together, because we all have different paces and different programs. And also, I found my community by going to attending races, because then you see familiar faces, and yeah, eventually you realize how many runners there are in the UAE.
You're very, very active on social media, particularly on Twitter. And we'll put your, for guys that want to follow you, we'll put your social media handles.
It's PinkTaxiBlogger.
We'll put that up on at the end of the
Yes.
the interview. But I can see that you train outdoors and in all parts of the city. So where are your favorite places to go and train, and why?
Well, it depends on what type of run. So if I have intervals, I would want a good track so that I could concentrate, safety, and also to have a good surface. On some days I'm in a hurry and I have to just run out the door, as they say. So I just run in my own neighborhood. But I also love to go to different venues. And my favorite, I would say, is the creek. I go for the different bridges. That also alone, and it's to just run over bridges is such a motivating thing. And to run in Old Dubai, since I'm a native almost of the UAE, I feel very comfortable with the smells and the people and the city waking up, the sailors in their dhows, and I feel confident also. So I run around the different boats and things, and I like it. I like the atmosphere of the city waking up so early in the morning, because I only run very early in the morning, between 5 and 8 maximum. Sometimes I run at sunset, depending on the weather and depending on my schedule. But my preferred time is I get out of bed and I just go out. Another place I like is Mamzar, because I run towards Sharjah, and that in itself feels like, oh, I ran to Sharjah today, and that's a good feeling. And then I run into Sharjah, so I get a feeling of that emirate as well. And lately I've discovered the Palm. Now the Palm has a boardwalk, which is 11 kilometers long. It's safe. It's very large. So there's space, very nice space for running. It's by the sea, and it's on the upper crest of the Palm, and that's what I did this morning, for example. So if I did 11 times 2, there goes a good 22 kilometers. The city of Dubai offers a lot of venues for safe running. But I also run highways and I run sidewalks and roads, and I run in the desert. I go down to Khawanij, and I get lost. I also love Mishrif Park. Mishrif Park is a place where I choose to go for my tempo runs because it's quite hilly and it has twists and turns, and and it's desert. It's a desert park, so it's a very natural habitat.
It seems like then that you've got very strategic places you can run depending on what stage
what
you're
I'm
at in your
looking-
training.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can go hilly, you can go flat,
Yeah.
you can go for a long distance.
And I know when it's crowded and when it's not, so that's also important. You don't want to go on the beach. The beach is lovely also, the track there, but you can't run midday because it's crowded and you don't want to bump into children on tricycles. So you have to know to go early to run on the beach track.
Sure. So you're obviously in the middle of training right now. So
Yes.
when is the race, and at what stage are you in your training, and how is that kind of progressing?
The race is in less than 3 weeks. It's a Nice-Cannes race. It's a Nice-Cannes marathon. So it's from the city of Nice in France to Cannes. And I have done this race before. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine the scenery is
The scenery is
amazing.
incredible. Last time I did it was 2 years ago. It rained that day. So I didn't see much of the scenery except for puddles. So I decided I would definitely do it again. And in light of what happened in the summer, I also want to do it to pay homage to France and to Nice.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like going against all odds. So I'm very excited about that.
So when you go running on location like that out of the UAE, how often or how far in advance do you arrive there and start to sort of acclimatise or get used to the terrain?
Well, for the South African one, it meant so much to me, I had to really plan to stay 2 weeks before. That was an extraordinary situation because also I didn't know the country. I had to get used to the environment and get comfortable. And I just loved it. I loved South Africa, and it's definitely I want to go back and run there again. But for the other places, like I've ran New York Marathon, I would say as long as you're not jet lagged, and sometimes jet lag works in your benefit because you wake up early for the marathon anyway, because for the New York Marathon, the logistics are so complicated. You have to wake up at 2 in the morning to get started at 7 because they transport you there and then you wait, and New York is complicated. But for other marathons, like I've done in Geneva, which is home to me, I just arrived the night before, and not the night before, 48 hours before, and sleep well. It's very important to sleep 2 days before your marathon, a very good night's sleep, because you never sleep well on your race day. And so that's as much time as you need.
Now I know from what I've read about you that you know that running is very important and getting kilometres in the bank in the lead up to a race. But I know that you've got a whole new fitness lifestyle for recovery and also for getting ready for a big race. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right. Okay. Before I ran, I started with Pilates, and Pilates is my backbone. It's literally, it works on your core, but it's also a very healthy, it's almost a medical way of keeping your body healthy. I work my mobility there. I stretch after my runs. Sometimes I go from a run, nice and hot from a run, into the Pilates studio, into a class, and that's where I stretch. And I always say, I never walk in the same way as I walk out of that Pilates studio, I always feel so much better. It's very challenging. One has to be motivated and one has to keep going and not give up. And sometimes it gets boring, but it's all about staying focused, and it helps me in my runs. I had started Pilates 12 years ago, so that's really the basis of my fitness.
So why Pilates versus yoga? Because
I also do yoga, but Pilates is definitely suits me. I have a good coach, and I think it's for me, it's something that it's like an art. But I also do Bikram yoga, and at the same club. This is Club Stretch, even though the weather is hot in Dubai and I'm always out there sweating it out, in a Bikram yoga class, you stretch your muscles differently and you hold your poses in a good way. So that type of yoga does suit me as well. So yes, I do yoga as well. And Inner Fight, which I mentioned, is a CrossFit program. But I do the section which is for endurance runners and triathletes. So they make sure in that program, which I take the classes for endurance athletes, for us not to be too hard on our body. So we don't do burpees and we don't do box jumps and things that are tough on our skeleton, because the rest of the time we're out there just constantly pounding the pavement.
Yeah.
So we come and we emphasize our core. We also do a lot of squats and lunges for our legs, and it's a whole body thing. We have to also make sure our upper body is fit, that our arms and core and back and chest, and so it's a strength building course. And so I do that twice a week. I do Pilates 3 times a week. I run 4 to 5 times a week, and I still have to recover. So there are days where I do nothing. By nothing, I mean it excludes golf or or other or swimming or going to the beach with the kids or keeping up with my children. But that is why some days I do have to do a Pilates and a run on the same day, so I have to manage my time, and I have to wake up early and sleep early, because this is the only way I can fit everything in.
Yeah, sleep's important, of course.
Sleep is so important, yeah. It's part of recovery. And you cannot train the way I do, at least, without the sleep, without the rest days, I recover the minute I stop that Garmin watch. After that, I'm like, now I'm in recovery mode. I have 24 hours for my next run. I must recover now. And that entails taking a recovery drink sometimes, right after, or eating something immediately after, so that you replenish. It's refueling. So it's also, nutrition is very important, and the timing of nutrition is very important in training.
To watch part 2 of this revealing interview with Yasmine Salaam, just click on the link in the bottom of this video.